Hello, and welcome to the 10th BrettCast episode, the sort of podcast where I take all of my individual segments and throw them together into one longer video that releases once, maybe twice a week. Starting things off is going to be What's New With, where I'm going to be looking at some Transformers, some Star Wars, and some DC Multiverse stuff as well. From there, it's over to Gaming Talk, where I'm going to be discussing and giving my thoughts on the first installment of the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, Ninja Gaiden Sigma. Finally, I'll wrap things up with a double screening of movie and TV talk, where I'm going to first talk about some of the things that I missed in my initial discussion on Transformers Rise of the Beast. After that, I'm going to be discussing and giving my thoughts on the movie Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And now, let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the What's New With segment. In this segment, I'm going to be looking at a newly revealed Transformers collaboration figure, then a Star Wars The Black Series figure, and finally a couple of DC Multiverse figures. Let's get into it. First up, we have the newest collaboration figure between Transformers and G.I. Joe with Soundwave as the Dreadnought Thunder Machine. Look, I don't know anything about G.I. Joe, and I've really only read them in a few comic books, and that's kind of it. This is the third one of these collaboration figures with G.I. Joe, and I'm not sorry to say that I think this looks ugly as fuck. I really do not like the red all over Soundwave. It does not work for him at all. The over-the-shoulder gun thing looks awful. I don't like the double Gatling gun weapon, nor do I like the combat knife or think it works at all for Soundwave. Now, I know that this thing has to be compatible with G.I. Joe figures and they have to incorporate in both modes, but again, I'm not sorry here. The big backpack thing looks ugly and really stupid too. Ravage also looks really ugly in that blue and red color scheme with the spiked collar and chain. It just all looks stupid, and the vehicle mode is even worse. Everything about this figure just looks dumb and stupid to me, and I'm not sorry to say this. I'm not a G.I. Joe collector, so I have absolutely nothing to say about the characters that come with Soundwave other than they come with him. This guy also has a $99 price tag, and that is absurd. All of these G.I. Joe and Transformers collaboration figures, to me, just look terrible and do nothing for me. I don't like them, and I'm not going to buy them. Next up is the Star Wars The Black Series Clone Wars TV show version of Mace Windu. Given that Mace Windu is my favorite Jedi in all of Star Wars, you bet your bottom dollar that I love this thing, and I've already got one on pre-order. I just love it. The cape flows really nicely, the armor looks great, everything just looks great and works on this figure. This guy releases in August with a price of $27.99. Now, I have two DC Multiverse figures here, Blue Beetle and Blue Beetle Battle Mode. Now, yes, I do like both of them, but I'm not that big into the one with the big wings on the Battle Mode one. They look great, the wings do, just not really my thing. The Battle Mode also comes with some other hand options, and that's it. However, the standard one, which is the one that I would actually buy if I find one, looks great. I'm pretty sure that he won't be able to hold the big sword, but it's cool that it comes with it. It also comes with some thrown weapon things of some sort. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet, not out at the time of recording this. But I like this one. Both of these guys release in August with a price of $24.99. Lastly, I have the DC Multiverse Carapax Mega figure. I don't really know what's so mega about this figure because, it's still 7 inches tall like the other two Blue Beetle figures. I do love how this figure looks though, because if I'm honest, this guy gives me the vibes of a Jaeger from Pacific Rim. The way the visor looks, the things on its back, the big shoulder pads, all of it feels like a mech rather than a person wearing a suit of armor. I definitely am going to be on the lookout for this one when it releases in August, but it does have the price tag of $41.99. And that's going to bring the What's New With segment to a close. Hello, and welcome to the Gaming Talk segment. In this segment, I'm going to be discussing and giving my thoughts on the first game of 3 games included in the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, Ninja Gaiden Sigma. Let's get into it. This is my first time experiencing a Ninja Gaiden game, so if you grew up with the series and have nostalgia for it, then good for you. Here's the thing. I don't hate this game at all. The big problem with it is that it is just super boring. Mechanically, everything in the game is really solid. The combat flows quickly and smoothly for the most part. There are some moments where the character kind of keeps swinging weapons even if an enemy is dead and I'm trying to go on to the next enemy to fight. There's a nice variety of weapons, katanas, nunchucks, throwing stars, bows, all of that. You can upgrade some of them, you can't upgrade throwable weapons for some reason. To be honest, the game boils down to pressing 2 to 3 buttons to kill all the enemies, and sometimes you have to solve puzzles and do annoying acrobatic sections too. Yeah, sometimes the jump in this game can do a little more harm than good. Like, sometimes that jump is just a little bit extra and leads to annoying situations where I have to redo something because you jumped too far. The whole of Chapter 7 annoyed me to hell, because another big problem with this game is that I don't know what my goal is during the level most of the times. Hell, sometimes I'm just guessing to where I'm going, because you have to find the map in each level, and don't even get me started on Chapter fucking 12 of this game. It makes everything really confusing as to where I'm going, since there are multiple ways to go in most levels, but as I said, you just don't know where you're going half the time. I find this game to just be boring. It's not much keeping me interested. The combat is repetitive. The story, I don't even know what the story is, honestly. You're a ninja. There's people with guns and rocket launchers. I have no idea what the story is. And I don't know if it particularly matters what the story is. I also do not at all like the second character you play as sometimes. Rachel, I believe her name is. Everything from the outfit to the constant unnecessary boob jiggling, it's gross, and it's a pointless and a part of the game that did not age well. Overall, the combat is repetitive and boring. The story may as well not exist. They over-sexualize the female character to gross and unacceptable levels. I can't with this game. I think that Ninja Gaiden Sigma is a average game, not enjoyable, and I cannot recommend it. But that's going to do it for the Gaming Talk segment. Hello, and welcome to the first part of the Movie and TV Talk segment. In this part, I'm going to go over a few things that I missed in my original discussion for Transformers Rise of the Beast, so let's get into it. The first thing, and something that I liked, is the Terracons have a constant presence throughout the movie. It's something that is very uncommon in Transformers movies, it feels like, and that is not how it should be. I mean, the Autobots and the Terracons, they fight several times throughout the movie, well before the big final battle of the movie. You really learn to hate Scourge because he and his Terracons keep beating the Autobots and Maximals, and that leads into the final battle where the Autobots and Maximals have to learn to work together to overcome the Terracons. The second thing is one that leans into something a little bit negative, which has to do with the final battle wherein Scourge's little area has all these tubes that happen to be conveniently large enough for a human to crawl through because, they do have to give the human characters something to do in the movie. I don't know, it's just kind of a suspension of disbelief thing, I suppose. But I've also heard people complain that the human characters are too involved in the plot of this movie, which I disagree with. Because, until Paramount has the budget to make a full CGI Transformers movie, then there has to be human characters in the movie, and they do have to be able to do something. So I guess in one way, I understand it, even though I'm complaining about it. Rise of the Beast has the same number of human characters as Bumblebee, so I kind of don't get people's complaint here. The third thing that I have to address is that I have heard about how people keep talking about the transit scene that was cut from the movie and how much better the movie would have been if the scene was left in. Now, small update to the script here, because I wrote this script about a week ago, and now at the time of recording this, IGN has released, I guess, is part of the transit scene. Now, I have heard that it's not the full scene, as it's only like 2 minutes long, and the whole scene is supposed to be like 4 to 5 minutes long. However, after seeing the scene, I still question what is the big deal about the scene. A lot of people were saying that this scene added something important to the movie, but I just don't see it. It's a fight scene. That's it. It doesn't add anything of value to the movie, but it also doesn't take anything away from the movie of value by not being there. So I'm kind of in the middle about this scene, because sure, it would have been nice to see the scene in the movie, but it also doesn't make me feel heartbroken that it got cut from the movie. It just doesn't really matter either way to me. Plus, I also want to point out in this particular scene how I guess we're just calling it transit, the bus transformer in this scene, its robot mode looks very much to me like Nitro Zeus. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it just comes across that way to me. Just something interesting, I think. The fourth thing is something that I do agree with, is that the Autobot that they named as Wheeljack in the movie, it isn't Wheeljack. I feel like they just picked that name because it's an Autobot who does science stuff, and Wheeljack is an Autobot who does science stuff. So no, that's not Wheeljack, and it never will be, but I do still like the design of said Autobot, and I hope we do get a Studio Series figure of it. The fifth and last thing has to do with the whole G.I. Joe thing that seems to be dividing people who have watched Rise of the Beast. I know that in my original discussion video, I said that I'm all for a Transformers G.I. Joe movie, but now that I've had some time to think about the movie more and considering some of the Transformers comics I have read in the past, I've come to the conclusion that a G.I. Joe Transformers movie is not something that I want. We currently have 3 G.I. Joe movies, one being a spin-off with a 4th apparently announced to be on the way, but I don't know if it will ever come out, but that is not important. What is important is that these live-action Joe movies have not been good at all, like the 5 Bayverse Transformers movies. I don't really see how adding Joes to a Transformer movie will do anything aside from bring the movie down. It's also apparent to me that Hasbro has tried to do shared universe stuff in comic books with the likes of the First Strike, Revolution, and Revolutionaries books. And those comics did not perform very well. They brought together the likes of Transformers, G.I. Joe, Mask, Rom the Space Knight, Action Man, and Micronauts. I don't want to see a movie with all of these things in live action because shared universes that are not the MCU do not do well at all. They've even tried to cross Transformers with other things like Visionaries and Terminator. No. Plus, some of these properties on their own did not do well when Hasbro and IDW tried to bring them back in comic book form. I think it was after the Revolution series happened that a new Mask comic launched, and it lasted 6 issues before getting canceled because nobody was buying it. And I don't want to offend people that remember these properties and are still fans of them, but very few people today know of properties like Rom the Space Knight, Micronauts, Mask, and Visionaries, which means that films based on those properties would not be a worthwhile venture for Hasbro. I'm sorry I got off on a bit of a tangent there, but the point is that I don't want the Joes mixed into Transformers, and I don't want any kind of shared Hasbro universe movie either. It's just gonna make things worse. But, on to the next part. And here you have landed in the second part of the movie and TV talk segment. In this segment I'm going to be discussing and giving my thoughts on the movie Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Remember, there will be spoilers, so let's swing our way into this. Okay, story time. So, in the most basic terms, the story of this movie involves the overarching villain known as the Spot, having this villain thing for Miles. There's a whole thing that explains that the Spot was a person who worked in the building where the particle accelerator explosion happened in the first Spider-Verse movie, and that man got turned into the Spot. The Spot is also apparently the scientist who had the spider that was from another dimension that bit Miles and turned him into Spider-Man, but that also means that there's a dimension out there, the one that the spider's from, that doesn't have a Spider-Man, which is important later. Now, at the beginning of the movie, Gwen has a run-in with Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, who has and asks Gwen to join this kind of task force of spider people. The Spot becomes the target of said task force, so they send Gwen to Miles' dimension. She uses that to not only monitor the Spot, but spend time with Miles. Eventually, Miles follows Gwen through a portal back to the HQ of this task force and ends up learning something called the Canon, events that are supposed to happen to every Spider-Man, and if they're stopped, there's bad consequences. This is brought up because Miles accidentally stopped a canon event from happening, but he learns that one will happen to him since his dad is about to become police captain, and pretty much learns that his dad is going to get killed, and that he isn't allowed to stop this from happening because it's a canon event. There's a crazy escape sequence where Miles tries to go home, but because the DNA in him is from a different dimension, it spits him out on Earth 42. Also, Miguel is basically the secondary villain for the movie because he tries so very hard to not only stop Miles from escaping, but kind of tries to kill him because he was never supposed to be a Spider-Man and all that. Anyway, Miles goes to Earth 42, but he's unaware of this at the moment and tries to reveal to his parents that he is Spider-Man, and this is also when he learns that he didn't go back to his original dimension. Also, the entire time this is happening, the Spot makes himself a lot more powerful because Miles and others keep calling him things like a villain of the week. Thus, the Spot wants to become super powerful because Miles and them do that, and because the Spot wants to beat him at their next encounter. Miguel and some of the others are bent on tracking Miles down, while Gwen gathers some of the old Spider Gang from the previous movie to help Miles with the forthcoming battle because Miles gets captured by that dimension's Prowler because they don't have a Spider-Man, and that's where the movie decides to end. So what did I think of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Oh, this movie is so good. I don't even have the words to describe just how awesome and good this movie is. There's so many different Spider-Man variations in this movie, from comics to other animated versions and even live-action ones and video game ones too, which is awesome. I'm not going to list them all because it would just be a lot. I really enjoyed the message of this movie though. It may be simple and a bit cliche, but it works here and is told wonderfully, not just through dialogue, but also through the art style of the movie. Both Miles and Gwen go through having other people constantly wanting their lives to be a certain way when that isn't what they want, so the message comes down to be yourself and surround yourself with people who are going to accept you for the person that you are. A nice and well done message for the movie. I also really love how they convey ideas and messages through the method of show don't tell. I love the use of the different art styles, animation styles for all aspects of the movie too. This movie just has a lot about it that I love, and the only negative thing is that I wish the movie had not ended at all. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a great and enjoyable movie that I highly recommend seeing. I'm very excited to see where they go next. But that's going to bring the movie and TV talk segment to a close. And that's also going to do it for the 10th BrettCast episode. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I may answer a question or discuss a comment in a future episode. If you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.